Welcome back to Quick Films. Today I'm going to explain an American horror film called Maniac, released in the year 2012. Spoilers ahead. Like the video and subscribe. The first scene features a man named Frank who is following a random girl down the street. He follows her home and turns off the power on her floor. He then approaches the girl and compliments her on her beauty. After looking at him, the girl becomes terrified and screams. But Frank quickly stabs her in the back, killing her. After the murder, Frank uses his knife to detach her scalp and takes it with him. In the following scene, we see Frank stalking some random girls on a dating website. It appears that he hasn't uploaded any of his pictures on his profile. A few moments later, he receives a friend request from a girl named Lucy, and the two begin chatting. Lucy requests that he send some of his photographs, so he selects one from his gallery and sends it to her. Following this, they both decide to meet on a dinner date. At their first meeting, Lucy is surprised to see him because he does not look like what she expected. After a few moments of conversation, she asks him the reason for not having any girlfriends. Suddenly, Frank has a terrible headache and starts hallucinating that everyone in the restaurant is staring at him. He also sees Lucy bleeding from the head. He then rushes to the restroom and takes a pill to feel better. Here, it is revealed that Frank has been suffering from a migraine since childhood. Later, Lucy invites him to her home, and Frank agrees immediately. On their way in his car, Lucy notices some toy hands hanging in the back seat and inquires about them, to which Frank replies that they are for a fashion shoot of his friend. Soon, they arrive at Lucy's place, where she offers him a drink, plays music, and invites him to dance with her. Lucy attempts to seduce him into intimacy, but Frank presses her neck and suffocates her to death. He then takes his tool and cuts off her scalp. After this, he returns home, where he has kept several mannequins. Frank appears to enjoy restoring mannequins, and even has a store for it. He uses the scalps of his victims to make the mannequins look realistic. Meanwhile, he unwraps his new mannequin and attaches her scalp to its head. A while later, he begins conversing with the mannequins because he believes they are still alive, and that he is not alone. He introduces Lucy to his other victims, but at the same time, he starts shouting and hitting the dummy. He also breaks the bathroom mirror, indicating that he is mentally unstable. Just then, he is reminded of his childhood memories when he used to comb his mother's hair. The next morning, Frank notices a girl trying to photograph his mannequins from outside the store. Intrigued, he approaches her, and the latter introduces herself as Anna, and clarifies that she is simply photographing mannequins for her job. After taking several photographs, she decides to leave, but Frank asks if she wants to look at his art. He invites her inside and shows her his artwork. Anna is taken aback and impressed by the beautiful mannequins. He explains that he has been carrying on his family's business of restoring mannequins for 3 generations. Hearing this, Anna informs him that she is opening a photo shoot gallery soon and requests his permission to use photographs of his mannequins in the gallery. Meanwhile, she notices and inquires about a mannequin named Angela. He responds that it was her mother who has now passed away. After taking her gaze away from the mannequin, Anna notices the secret room inside the store and inquires whether he lives there. Scared, Frank rushes to stop her from entering and thanks her for coming. Following that, she asks if she can rent some of the mannequins, but he refuses, claiming that he is looking for a permanent home for them. Before she leaves, she gives him her phone number and asks him to call her if he changes his mind. Later, he prepares his knife and departs in search of his next victim. He spends the entire day observing every girl in the streets but finds no one attractive. At night, he notices a girl practicing her ballet dance. He stalks the girl in her changing room and observes her. The girl suspects someone is spying on her, but at the same time, her friends enter the room, making her feel a bit relieved. After a while, she departs the place and boards a train. Frank also follows her, and when the lady realizes it, she exits the train. Despite this, Frank continues to pursue her, causing the lady to flee and seek assistance. In the process, she enters a parking space and Frank locks the gate, preventing her from escaping. He then hides himself beneath a car, and when she approaches, he cuts her leg, causing her to fall. He then stabs her several times, killing her ultimately. But before leaving, he cuts off her scalp and takes it with him as usual. The next day, Anna thoroughly photographs Frank's work. She also asks his permission to have some faceless mannequins for her exhibition, to which Frank agrees. After a while, the two have lunch and enjoy each other's company because of their similar interests. Just then, Frank is attacked by his migraine, which causes him to feel uneasy. This worries Anna, and she inquires if he requires any medical attention, but he departs, assuring her that he will be fine. With blurred vision and pain, Frank goes to a medical store and purchases migraine medication. As he returns home, he watches the news about the police investigation into the murders. A few moments later, he hears his mother's voice calling for him. He is then reminded of his past, where his mother began having affairs with other men after his father died. A young Frank witnesses his mother using narcotics and making out with other guys, but she does not stop, even though he is right in front of her. In the present, Frank sobs as he recalls his childhood. Later that night, Frank drives to Anna's store and calls her while inside the car. During the call, Anna compliments him on his work and inquires whether the mannequin's hair is real, to which he pretends that it is horsehair. Frank then asks if they can meet, but Anna declines due to her busy schedule that night. Instead, she invites him to the movies the next day. As planned, Frank and Anna watch a movie the next evening. Frank stares at Anna the entire time, so Anna tells him to concentrate on the movie. A few moments later, he is reminded of his murders and has a terrifying vision of Anna as a mannequin. After the film, Anna receives a phone call. When Frank asks who it was, Anna replies that it was her boyfriend. This devastates Frank, as he had genuinely started liking Anna. Following this, Frank makes up an excuse and returns home early. A few days later, Frank attends Anna's exhibition, where she is presented Frank's mannequin and her photograph. When Anna notices him, she gets overjoyed. Meanwhile, Frank meets Anna's boyfriend, Jason, and follows him to the restroom. There, Jason recognizes Frank and informs him that Anna enjoys hanging out with gays. He also refers to Frank as a homosexual because he plays with mannequins. Once Jason leaves, Frank looks at himself in the mirror and becomes enraged. After a while, Frank meets Anna's agent, Rita, and stares at her like a maniac. Frank believes that Rita is his mother, who has appeared in another avatar. As Rita leaves the exhibition, Frank decides to kill her. He follows her to a posh hotel where she is taking a bath. As soon as she notices him, he drowns her in the bathtub until she becomes unconscious. When Rita wakes up, she discovers herself bound in the bed. She screams and begs Frank not to kill her, but he ignores her. He claims that he is no longer stupid, so he scratches her back with the knife and finally cuts off her scalp. The next morning, when Frank calls Anna to ask for his mannequin, he hears her crying. Anna reveals that her agent was brutally taken out and that the police have been investigating her for it. Frank then inquires as to whether she is with her boyfriend, but she responds that Jason has already flown to New York. Sensing the opportunity, Frank quickly leaves for Anna's home. When he arrives, he meets another man named Martin, who is Anna's neighbor. Anna introduces him and says that Martin is the one who assists her in designing the mannequin's face. Soon, Martin walks away, and the two begin to converse. Here, Anna reveals that her boyfriend left her because they had a massive argument after the exhibition. Frank tries to massage her shoulders and get close to her, but Anna refuses. He then tells Anna that it was not her fault that Rita and the other girls were murdered and mutilated. Accidentally, he also mentions Rita's location, which is a few blocks away. Hearing this, Anna realizes that Frank is the murderer, as no one knew Rita's hotel. Terrified, she grabs a knife and begs him to leave her alone. However, Frank gets closer, and Anna is compelled to use the knife. This enrages Frank, and he slams her through a table. Fortunately, Anna manages to kick him off and locks herself in the bathroom. She also yells for help, but when Martin comes to her aid, Frank stabs him in the mouth with a meat cleaver. As a result, Martin falls to the floor and is severely injured. Frank then goes to the restroom and requests Anna open the door. Just then, Martin attacks Frank from behind, but the latter counters and finishes off Martin. Following this, he breaks the door, suffocates Anna with the curtains, and loads her into his van. In the next scene, when Frank opens the van door, Anna stabs him with a pointed mannequin hand and flees, pleading for help. After a while, a car appears and Anna enters inside. Seeing Frank all bloodied, the car runs over him, and as a result, it loses control and gets into an accident. This kills the driver on the spot, while Anna is badly injured. Sensing the opportunity, Frank then rushes over to Anna and cuts off her head. He then places her scalp on one of the mannequins and proposes marriage to it. He also dresses the mannequin as a bride and puts on a wedding ring. He believes they will not be separated from now on. Meanwhile, he has hallucinations of all his other victims who are calling to him. He then puts Anna to bed, but the other girls tease him. He asks them to leave, but he doesn't notice Anna in the bed. Following this, all of the other girls encircle him and gradually tear up his flesh, eventually turning him into a mannequin as well. The movie ends as a SWAT team breaks into the house to find Frank dead.